Our next presenter is our very own Renee Lutke, whose LinkedIn article, Culture as Part of a Company's Operating System, was partly the inspiration for the theme of this event. Renee is the head of HR and talent at ShoreTech. She's been integral to building the cultural infrastructure of our firm by heading up our development coaching program, leading a robust internship program, creatively tackling the accountant shortage, and driving the day-to-day actions and interactions that build a strong culture. But Renee is no stranger to steel-toed boots and safety glasses. Before ShoreTech, she had a long career in HR, talent development, and recruitment roles within the manufacturing industry. And today she's here to talk to you about practical steps you can take to operationalize your culture. Renee?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to talk today about some practical steps that leaders can take to put culture, what you can do, and how that ties into your operation system. What culture is we are the ones that need to set the model. What do I mean by we as leaders? Culture starts at the top, and it starts with the leaders. We need to show what behaviors we expect. So if we're expecting certain behaviors, we want to show those behaviors ourselves. We want to show what decisions can be made. We want to show how those decisions are made. And all of that leads to how we can achieve the outcomes we're looking for. So culture is what actually happens in the business, and it's not what leaders say, it's what we actually do. So when we think of culture, we don't always think of operations, but culture is part of the operation system, and how do these intertwine? Again, operating systems answer how we operate, culture answers the behaviors that support that. The three categories, expectations, accountability, and execution, are the three focus areas I will talk about today. And those are the foundations of building your culture and achieving then the outcomes that we're all looking for. So expectations, it defines what good looks like. Leaders need to define that. What does good look like? Whether that's in our profession in accounting, what does a good tax return look like? If it's in manufacturing and you're building a product, what do we want that end product to look like? What does good look like throughout the whole process? Each team member should know what that is. Within their role, they should understand what good looks like. And again, that starts at the top to show that. Work expectation essential. So this ties into expectations. But we want to clearly define what completed looks like before the work begins. We want to define who is doing what. So each team member knows what their role is, what their priorities are. We want to reinforce behaviors and to achieve those expected outcomes. I'll talk through an example. Let's just say quality is one of our expectations, and quality over speed. We're telling the team at the end of the day, quality is the most important thing. But then we get busy, timelines get tight, people start cutting corners, they don't follow the process, but we get the work done on time. We don't address any of this. We don't address that quality maybe wasn't there. We skip steps. So we really understand that, or what we told our people is that speed was more important. That is the foundation of culture. So if we're saying one thing and we're doing something else or allowing those behaviors and not addressing them, we just told the team that speed is more important than quality. And that's what the team then is going to focus on going forward. So again, setting those expectations and following through on them. And if corners have to get cut, going back and having those conversations that we derailed off of what our expectations were and trying to course correct that. Decision making is part of expectations. We want, again, to define who decides, who's putting input. So if it's the manager, we're saying the manager ultimately decides, but the team gets input. We want everybody to know that so they understand that. We want to decide on when they should escalate. They should know that you go this far and then you have to escalate up to maybe a decision or up to the timing's changing or the priorities. But we want them to know that ahead of time. The second foundation is accountability. We're reinforcing standards and ownership. So again, each team member should understand what they own in the outcome. They should understand how they hold themselves accountable to the deliverables. So if we're saying we need this product done by X date, we need these machines done on this date, or we need to purchase by this date. Everybody in that process should understand what their role is, understand the deliverables of their role, and understand the dates. That's where then they can hold themselves accountable to those expectations. Accountability essentials. And again, accountability, you'll hear me say this throughout the presentation, everything starts at the top. So we want to make sure that as leaders, we are holding ourselves accountable. We are doing what we are saying. So we don't want to have different expectations of the team that we don't have of ourselves, because that's how they're going to start feeling comfortable being accountable for themselves. And we want to make sure in this accountability that that what we say is explicit and visible, so everybody knows that. For example, Renee will complete this client proposal by Thursday afternoon. Again, that goes back to the date, everybody knows that, and then accountability. So if I know something is due Thursday afternoon, then I understand that and I have to hold myself accountable. Essentials of ownership. Again, ownership is part of accountability. Clear ownership of driving the work to the end. So we want everybody to understand their role. We want them to know who owns what, and we want them to own what they do. Again, this ties into accountability, it ties into the due dates, it ties into everything to get the product to the end. We also want an owner of the whole project. We want someone to make sure that this project, whether it's in manufacturing or your tax return, from the beginning to end, and be able to follow that through. So the owner, if something doesn't go right in that, usually that could be a leader, they take responsibility of what didn't go right. They take responsibility, make sure the project gets out the door, or they take the responsibility of the follow through. And the third one is execution. This delivers results and outcomes. So this is the outcome that we're looking for. Execution is where accountability turns into results. It's not just about being busy. It is about delivering the completed, high-quality work on time. Strong execution means prioritizing what matters most. Within execution is quality. As stated before, I talked about that we have to make sure that people know what we expect. So part of that is defining what quality is. We want them to know at the beginning what we expect and what that quality is. Define the minimum standards, reinforce what quality we're looking for, and we want to make sure nobody's making assumptions, that it is clear on what we're looking for in that quality, when it's due, so that we can get to the outcome we're looking for. And last is continuous improvement. We want to make sure that we're continuously improving. After the product is done, sometimes you can have a debrief or the project, or make sure that we're always continuously improving. And it's not about blaming people. We don't want to blame someone. We want to allow them, as David and Tim talked about, allowing people to make mistakes. So we want to talk about problem solving, how we can do things better. So again, culture as part of the company's operating system. These behaviors are foundational. Culture becomes real through constant leadership actions and discipline in the areas that drives execution, accountability, and performance. What leaders reinforce daily becomes the organization's operates. Final thoughts are, these behaviors are optional, or they are not optional, they are the system. So whatever behaviors we show as leaders are what's going to become part of our culture. Culture doesn't form what we say, it's what we do. So again, if we expect certain things out of our team, we should be showing those behaviors and those disciplines. At the end of the day, the operations of the company will mirror what constantly is reinforced. Every conversation, every follow-up, and every action. Culture is only as strong as the behaviors and systems that it produces, and the operating systems are only as strong as the culture.